Hi everyone, good evening. I hope I'm audible to all of you. Please confirm the audio and video quality. I can then proceed with the session. Okay. Yeah, I think it's perfect. I've got some responses from you, and I'm also monitoring it on my other device. Okay, so okay, so I've just checked that. Let's just move ahead into our session today. So again, we are back to what we're going to be doing today. That is working on Power BI. Now, let us understand how we are going to be dealing with Power BI. Now, with respect to Power BI, we've already looked at the transformation. We've already looked at some data modeling, basic data modeling steps while working with it. And also, I've shown you how to create a hierarchy yesterday. So, yesterday I did mention that there is one more hierarchy that's possible with respect to the data that we have. I'm just sharing my screen, and this is the screen that I have shared. So yesterday I did mention that we do have another hierarchy possible in this particular data set, which I would want you to identify. So I'm assuming by now you have already identified that particular hierarchy. Yes, has everyone been able to identify the hierarchy? So I'll give you a hint. The hierarchy has something to do with the geographical data. So if you know what the hierarchy can be, or what the hierarchy is, please do let me know in the chat. I'm waiting for your responses, everyone. So if you look at the data, here you can see you've got information pertaining to the country, you have information pertaining to the state, and you have information pertaining to the city. So using these three columns or these three variables of fields, you can go ahead and create another hierarchy called as geography or maybe region, whatever you wish to call it as. So I can go and create another hierarchy in the model view. Here I'll click on the orders, expand the orders table, and I will begin with the highest level of the hierarchy. Now, yesterday we closed on working with the hierarchy, but I did not talk a little bit about the different, aspects of the model. So here you can see that I have created the details with respect to the tables. So if I expand the tables, you can see there are 23 columns. All the information is present here. There is one hierarchy which is present here. Okay, and then there's this one partitions that is basically the data that you're actually dealing with. So if you go to the model tab here under the data model or the model view, you will see you have all the information pertaining to your data model. Now, if I go back to my tables area, I can see that here I have got the name of the table. So this is the name of the table. Then category here is actually the name of the field. Okay. So basically this is the field that you're dealing with. And this is the table that you're dealing with. Now, if you look at this over here, it is basically the products hierarchy that you're dealing with. And when I go ahead and expand this products hierarchy, you will notice I've got three different levels in this, and these are called as level of hierarchy. So basically, this is your hierarchy. Okay, I'm just writing it in short forms, and these are different levels of the hierarchies within your data. So this is how you create your hierarchies and allow your data or allow drill down into your data. So in the same lines, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select country, right click on it, and I'm going to click on create new hierarchy or create hierarchy. Now here I have got a country hierarchy created. I'm just going to delete that and I'm going to call it as geography. I did not call it as region because region is already present as a field in my data. So I'll just rename it as geography and I will add levels within it. So I'll click the drop down here and I will add the next level as state. and followed by city, and then click apply level changes. Now, once I've created these hierarchies, I can go ahead and work with my data and deal with the different levels of the hierarchies and drill down into the different levels of the hierarchies. So now what we're going to do is, first and foremost, I'm going to show you another data set from scratch, and I'm going to show you how to create it or how to work with it. So there are the different visualizations that are there. I will talk about the different visualizations also today, and I will talk about how to work with relationships, etc., within the data, and what kind of visuals should be created using what kind of data. Now, if we look at the data set that we just used, I did mention that it's one single sheet that I'm dealing with, and this will be treated more like a flat file that I am using, even though I have got multiple sheets within this, but I have used only one sheet in this, and there's only one single table. So there's no other table, and because of which I don't really need to create any more. I don't need to kind of bring in any more data. So for now, I'll just close this file and I will open up a new file that I will be using in, I'll just stop the sharing just so that I can get all the information up and running. So I will just get the data. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen once again. This data has already been shared with you, so please don't worry. I've already shared this data, and I think you have already downloaded it as well. So the next data set that I'm going to be using is the printer sales data set, which is basically going to be, 1 minute, I think I have, I'll just update this folder, 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Let me get the data, the right data. I think I've picked up the wrong file. I don't want to be into a situation where we have a problem. Okay, so I have got all the files that are required. I'm just going to share my screen once again, and I'm going to begin the next case study for this particular bootcamp. So I've actually used, I'm actually using the case studies specifically so that we can actually understand what we are doing with respect to the data, because that way it becomes easier for working with it. Okay, let me just get rid of this file. I don't need this. So I've got this printer sales data file. Now when you open this, this is basically an Excel file, but has been designed with 3 different sheets in it. One is the invoices sheet, second is the product sheet, and the third is the customer sheet. Now, in this case study, I'm going to cover every single bit of Power BI or whatever is there as part of or the entire training sequence that is there. So we are going to first, so all those people who missed out on the first day, don't worry, you will be able to kind of cope up with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load the data into Power BI, and then I'm going to go about creating some columns within it, working with calculated columns, working with measures, working with the Power Query transformations and everything right from scratch. Okay. So I'm now giving you a quick preview of the data. You can even preview it at your end. So there is an invoices table, there is a products table, and then there's a customers table. Now the task that we need to perform here is we need to perform analysis of this data. Now, I normally use this case study for teaching Excel. That's why I use pivot tables to achieve all this particular analysis. But the problem in using Excel is I have to perform all these tasks in it so that I can actually reach and get the analysis. But in Power BI, you don't really have to do a lot of these things. Yes, there are a few things that you will need to do, but not using these four steps are going to be eliminated, where I will require to write a VLOOKUP, because I will be creating relationships between my tables, which will enable me to replace the VLOOKUP entirely. So then when VLOOKUP is not there, gone are the disadvantages of VLOOKUP, because when I use VLOOKUP, I can only pull in data which is to the right of the column. All that is not going to be any, that's not going to have any relevance in this particular situation. So very quickly, let's quickly look at the data. So I've got document type, I've got document number, date, customer account, name, item, reason code that the customer returned the product. Then there is a part number, description, quantity, and unit price. Now you will notice that I have to get information about the region wise sales. So basically from the customers table, I need to get the state information brought into the invoices table and then create my analysis, or then base my analysis on it, which is not a very good way of doing it. So obviously if I'm using Excel and I don't have an option, I have to use Excel. But if I do have Power BI with me, I can easily solve this problem using Power BI. So let's open up Power BI, and here, before I do anything, I am going to make one small change into the report. So I will go back to the, I'll click on this options and settings. Here I'm going to click on options. And if you are working with relationships in your data, and if you want to practice creating relationships yourself, this is one step you should always perform. So this is for every file, because this is a current file step. Okay. So I'm going to go to the data load option under current file, and I'm going to switch off import relationships and auto detect new relationships. The reason why I'm switching these off is because I want to show you what is the implication of not creating a relationship between tables, and how do you resolve the problem through the relationships in the data. So to begin with, I'm going to go ahead and search for the data source that I need to work with. So my data source here is going to be an Excel workbook. So I can go under the home tab, and from the data options, I can select Excel workbook. Now here I will need to provide the data sets that are there. Okay. I can provide the data set from here. These are the 4 data sets that I am dealing with. It's a little surprising. Which is this? This is okay. And the other one. Oh, okay. I have this in this folder. Okay. Anyways, not an issue. I can use this also. So I'll just pick up printer sales data and click open. Now, when I click open, I will be able to reach the navigator pane. Now, in this navigator pane, unlike the last situation where I could see only 3 different sheets, here I can see 3 different tables, and I can also see 4 different sheets of data. Now, these sheets are not what I want to pull in my data from. I will be pulling in my data in from a table format in Excel. The reason is because table formats are dynamic, and whenever there's new data, it will automatically just come into your file whenever you click refresh. So here I will select the first 3 options. That is the first 3 tables: customers, invoices, and products. Now these have got these numbers ahead of them. We need to fix that. That we will do when we go to the transform data option in the Power Query tab. So once I'm in Power Query, you will be easily able to transform your data. Now, to begin with, in the customers table, I've got the account column, which actually is a numerical column. That means it contains numbers, But this is not going to be treated as a numerical field or a quantitative field. This has to be treated as a categorical field, because this is a nominal column. Basically, it's a under categorical, you've got nominal and ordinal. Nominal is when these numbers are just for the sake of identification. So that's exactly what these numbers are. And if I try to perform any aggregation on it, and even if I'm able to do it, it doesn't make any sense, because if I take the total of the account number column, I'm going to get a number which will not make sense. So I'm converting this into so I click on this button here, and I'm going to convert this to a text data type. Now here it says, do you want to replace the current step or do you want to add a new step? So I'll just click on add new step. And when I click on add new step, it gets converted to a text data type. Now everything else is okay. I'll go to the name. So I'm going to change the name from customers 3 to just customers. I'm not going a lot into the details of how the transformations are happening. So again, invoices, I can select it, or I can just double click it and I can replace it with invoices. Invoices one will be removed. Again, here for my document number column, I can simply select it and I can change the data type to text. I will add a new step, and then I will look at customer account. I will change this as well to text, because I don't want it to aggregate when I use them. Then everything else remains the same. I don't need to make any changes except for unit price. Now, unit price being a value which is actually dealing with currency, I'm going to change this to a fixed decimal number, because I need to use this as dollars. Then I'm going to go to products 2. My part number will remain as it is. I will change the name to just products. And product cost is going to be a fixed decimal number. Click replace. Sorry. You could have just added a new step. But sometimes I prefer adding a new step because it causes problems while working with it. But right now it did not, so I'll just leave it as it is. Once this is done, I'm going to click on close and apply. So when I click on close and apply, it will be applied and I will see the data in the data pane, and I will also see it in the report view. Now within the data pane, I can see I've got customers, invoices, and products. Now this is where I have to now look at the calculations that I need to perform. Now in the case study we did before this, we already had business metrics available in the data. But here that's not the case. If you open up the invoices table, which usually contains all the metrics that you want to analyze, because remember, when you're dealing with data, okay, in this prior situation, we had just one table, and that one table contained everything. Okay, we had one table and that table contained everything. All the business metrics, KPIs, everything was available there. But in this case, I've got 3 tables. Now this is where your data modeling concepts come into picture, where we need to understand how to work with the different tables that are there and how to connect the tables using different fields available in your table. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the invoices table. So when you look at the invoices table, okay, I'm just looking at the chat. Category means string and continuous means integers. Sushant, yes, partially you are correct. But when I say integers, it does not necessarily mean, as I showed you, customer account number. The number is there, even though the column contains integers, but it does not belong to a continuous field. It belongs to the categorical fields. Okay, and I told you the reason why. I hope I have kind of given you the right answer, and I've helped you understand why. So everyone, please keep that in mind. Okay. Well, now the next thing that we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at the invoices table. So if you look at the invoices table, you've just got unit price and quantity. You don't have any revenue, profit, or anything of that sort. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to create that particular column. Now that is where we need to look at the different kind of ways to create it. So when should you create your column and how can you create your columns? So there are 3 places wherever your calculation should be done. One is you do it at the source itself. Now currently, what is the source of my data? It is an Excel file. If your source is an Excel file, please avoid making your calculations in Excel or performing your calculations in Excel. The reason is because Whenever there is new data that comes in, you will have to always open up your Excel file and make the updates there. Okay. The next thing is, if your source is an SQL server, this is a good place to make your updates. The reason is because, one, as a data analyst, you may not be the one who's actually making the changes. It is going to be done by the database administrator or the data engineer or whoever is going to be handling the database there for you. So try to do it in SQL. If you have SQL or your data source is in SQL, avoid doing it in Excel. So this is the first place you can perform your calculation. Now, the second place you can do it in is Power Query, where you start transforming your data. Now, in Power Query, you can do it using the add column feature. Okay, I'm going to show you how it is to be done. And the third is within Power BI itself, okay, within Power BI's model, and this can be achieved or can be done using the DAX functions. Okay, you can use DAX functions or the calculated columns. You can create two kind of calculations here. You can create a calculated column or you can create a measure. Now I'm going to explain both of them, and I'm also going to explain what is DAX one by one. So first things first, let us create a revenue column in Power Query. So as I did mention, you can do it in Power Query in the source. So we are not doing it in the source. I mentioned why we should not do it in the source. Okay. Let's add the column in Power Query. Now, in order to add the column within Power Query, what we need to do is we need to go back to the transform data option. So I'm going to click on transform data. And when you click on transform data, you will see the queries available here. Now, I'm interested in the invoices table. So I'm going to select the invoices table. And here I'm going to scroll to the right and see that I have a quantity column and a unit price column, which can be used to create my data. So in this case, I think there is one value which is empty over here. So there's a null value here, two values. Okay. So I will need to just put in the quantity there. So I can, so that we don't have an issue with it. Okay. Because there's a, the quality of the column can be seen. So here under your Power Query, if you go to the View tab, you have the option to look at the column quality that tells you how many valid, error, and empty columns, empty values do you have in that column. You can even look at the column distribution, which shows you the number of distinct and unique values. And also you can look at column profile. What column profile does is when you select a particular column, it gives you the statistics for that column. If it is a numerical column or if it is a column which is basically numerical in nature, it will show you the information for the value distribution, okay, and the column statistics. But if it is non-numerical in nature, it will just give you column statistics which are not really more on the numerical side. But yes, it gives you the frequency of every single value that appears in that particular column, how many times it appears. So that's the frequency. Anyways, now let's get back to our invoices table. And here what I need to do is I need to go about getting a new column inserted or created inside this. But before that, I did mention that there is a column with quantity that needs to be, you need to fix the null values. So what you can do is you can simply right click on the column, okay, and then you have got the replace values option. So click on replace values, and here you will type null all in lowercase, and you will replace it with, let's say, 2, just in case we're not taking a very large value that does impact the data, and you click on OK. Now, when you do that, the value has been replaced. So when you click the drop down again, you will notice there is no null value mentioned here. Now we can click OK. And then we can go ahead to create the column. Now, in order to create the column, I will click on the add column option here, or the add column tab here. And from here, you can choose which column or which is the option you want to work with. So currently I'm going to work with this custom column option here. So when I click on custom column, you will notice it gives me a pop-up that asks me to specify how do I want to create that particular column. So in this case, I'm going to change the column name into revenue. But in brackets, I'm going to write CC. That indicates that this is the, sorry, not CC. I'm sorry. I will write PQ here and close the bracket. This PQ indicates Power Query. So basically, I will be creating revenue once more again in the Power BI data model, but I will be doing it using a calculated column feature. So right now I'm creating it in Power Query, and I am going to go ahead and create the formula. Now there's one important thing that I would like to bring to your notice. A lot of experts say that whenever you want to create any additional columns in your data, or whenever you think you need them, please try to create them as early as possible. So if you can create it in the source, nothing like it, because that's the earliest option possible. Second is, if you can create it in Power Query, you create it in Power Query. Third, and the last option is, if you cannot, then you go ahead and create it in your Power BI data model. So this is something you need to know about. Now, when I start typing the formula, so I can start typing the name of the column that I want to work with. So for example, here I'm working with the unit price column. So the moment I type UNI, you will notice that the unit price column comes right on top and it is highlighted. Now, if I hit the tab key, you will be able to add that particular column in your formula. So you'll be able to utilize it as part of your formula. Now you can just put a multiplication symbol, and then you can put in your second part of the formula. So I'm multiplying unit price by the quantity. So hit the quantity and then click on OK. Now, before you click on OK, you can see that there are no syntax errors detected in this data. So when you say there are no syntax errors, basically it means that the logic for the formula is absolutely perfect. But there is a good chance that there may be a human error that you would be committing. Now, when you say human error, what do you actually mean by that human error? It means that, let's say in case of unit price, I'm writing some other price column. That is something that I am committing a mistake. It's not the error that can be detected, because here you just have to put the name of the column correctly. So somebody may use unit price, somebody may use something else. But yes, if I miss out this star, or if I do not put this bracket at that point in time, I may face errors with my data or issues with my data. So I've got my revenue PQ column created in Power Query. Let's just click on OK. And once we do that, we will see that a new column has been created. And you can see that the revenue PQ column is appearing in the preview pane. Now, the important thing is revenue is basically, again, another currency-based field. So I'm going to click on this button here, and I'm going to change it to a fixed decimal number. When you do that, you are now able to look at it from the dollar perspective. Okay. Beauty's help, I cannot understand what your query is. Putting some value other than the original will create error, isn't it? So when you say original, what do you mean by the word original? That is what I want to understand. Yeah, if you're saying that I just randomly put in 2 there, yes, I randomly put in 2 there because I don't really know what the value was. Okay. Sarath, regarding replacing null values with the median or mean, you will have to first calculate the median or mean in Power BI, because you cannot do it directly from here. Okay, that is one thing. Putting some value other than original will create error. Yes, another thing that you can do, Sarath, is you can create a column, but you will have to write a formula for it. So you can say, if the value in that particular column is null, then maybe you can take mean of that column or median of the column. That can be done using a formula, but that's using the formula in the custom column. Right now, we've just written a simple formula, unit price multiplied by the quantity to get the revenue. Now I'm going to go to the home tab, and now I'm ready with my data. I'll just go back and click on close and apply. Now, when you click close and apply, you will notice that there is a new column created called revenue PQ, which indicates that here you are the you've got the revenue column that comes in from the Power Query calculation. Now, to begin with, So Shant, your questions, numbers can be category, but string cannot be continuous. Yes, numbers can be category, but string cannot be continuous. That's the right thing. Yes, that's true. Okay. Sorry, I missed out that question. Uh, Sarath, maybe it can be replaced. Yes, I did mention that you can actually, you don't do it, you don't replace it in this way, but you can actually do it using a formula. You need to write if the value is equal to null, then you replace it with the mean of that particular column. That's how you set it up. Else, you leave it as it is. Okay, now comes the moment of truth. Now I am trying to find out what is the total revenue. So I've got the revenue column, which I created in the Power Query. When I click on it, okay, I see I'm going to get 971,000 to 60.62 thousand. So $961.62 thousand. Now this is actually supposed to be written in dollars, but it's written in rupees. The reason is because my regional settings have been set to India. Now, in order to get this information in dollars, what you can do is you can select that particular column. Okay, just click on the column name, and then you will notice that there's a column tools tab that's available, which is contextual in nature. When you say contextual, what does it mean? It basically means that whenever you're trying to whenever you're moving out of that particular column or that particular visual, the tab will disappear. So if I click on it, you will notice that you have the uh, revenue column. When clicked, you can see the table tools and the column tools available. So let's do one thing. Let's go ahead and change this into a dollar number formatting. So from here, under the formatting, I have just clicked on dollar, and it will automatically be converted into a dollar number format. So now talking about the value, you have 971,000 or 971.62 thousand. Now, obviously, the next step is going to be to break down this data and see how much am I going to get in terms of every single state. So what I will do is I will click on the customers table, I will expand it, and I will try to add the state to my visual. Now look at this, what happens. When I click on state, like yesterday, when I clicked on category, it broke down the data immediately. But that hasn't happened here. Now the reason is because there is no connection between these two tables. Okay, and that connection is called as relationships between the tables, and that forms a very, very fundamental aspect of dealing with the data. Okay, so when you work with this, you can see when I clicked on state, the expectation was that my revenue of 971,000 would be broken down by states, but that hasn't happened. It has broken it down, but it's giving the same value for all these states, which is impossible. Now what I need to do is I need to go into my model view. Okay, and under the model view, when you click, you can see there are different tables. Like in the last case study, you could see only one single box there, but this time around you can see three different boxes which indicate three tables. And if I expand them, you will see all the fields within it. Okay, I can just expand this further. Okay, now here, when I want to filter, so basically I want to let the state filter, or I want the customers table to filter the invoices and give me state wise revenue. Because if that doesn't happen, only if that happens, I will be able to see the state wise revenue. But if that doesn't happen, I'm not going to be able to see it. So there are two ways of creating a relationship. Let me show you both the ways. One is you can go to the report view, and from there you can go to the modeling tab and click on something called as manage relationships. Now from here, if I click on auto detect, it will automatically detect two relationships that are there. One is customer name with customer name, and description with description from products table. Okay, now the problem here is when I do this, it does break down my data. That's absolutely fine. But whenever you are creating a relationship, the relationship is basically being built on two different columns, or two columns, not different, but then two columns which are common between the two tables. For example, here we are creating a relationship between the invoices table and the customers table. And in both these tables, the customer name column is a common column. Okay. Can we do all the processing things in Excel? Uh, yes, you can do it, but if you do it in Excel again, you will have to go back and do it manually. So Power Query is going to help you to automate all those transformations. That's why, Sarath, you should always do your transformations in Power Query unless and until you know that you're doing it. If you're doing it in SQL, that's again a formula driven thing, or maybe a query driven thing, which is going to automatically update whenever new data comes in. Okay, can it be connected on customer name? Yes, customer name is going to be the one that you can connect on, but there's a very important thing that you need to work out. So normally when you perform your relationships, or when you create your relationships, there is a column that is dedicated as something called as a key column. Now, in most cases, these key columns are either numeric values which are unique. Okay, these are unique numeric values, or you may have unique alphabetical values. But both of them can also be combined, and you can get that done as well. So it could be alphanumeric also, it could be just numeric as well. Now here, when the relationship is created, I'll just go ahead and delete these relationships because I want to create them from scratch and show you how that is done. Now when you click on new relationship, here you've got this from table and you've got this to table. Now this is where we need to understand something called as the star schema. Now the star schema, if you've studied SQL before, you would know how it is done. Yes, it absolutely works like a join in SQL. That's absolutely right, Sushant. Okay. Now, in the star schema, you have got a central table and you've got other tables that you are connecting to. Now, this central table is the transaction table, which records all the events of your data, or events in the organization, or events in the business. Like when you perform a sale, so it shows you who have you sold it to, what products have you sold it to, and what is the pricing of it, and what is the profit, etc., earned on it. That is the transaction table for you. Okay. Then you have master tables that you connect to. Now, your transaction table may not have all the information required for the analysis. Some of them may reside on the master table. Now, the reason for it residing on a different table could be multiple reasons. As I mentioned, a flat file could increase the size of your data. So, putting all your data onto a flat file is of no use. It doesn't make sense. Another important thing is these master tables and the transaction table will have a common column in between them, because on the basis of which you will be able to extract data pertaining to the master tables for the transaction table analysis. So let me give you a simple example with the one that we're actually looking at. So here I've got the invoices table and I've got my customers table and I've got the products table. So I've got two master tables and I've got one fact table, or sorry, a transaction table. Transaction tables are also referred to as fact tables, and master tables are also referred to as the uh, dimension tables. Dimension tables. Okay, so you have the master tables called as dimension tables and the invoices table or the transaction table called as a fact table. Now remember, in order to connect these tables, because till you don't connect them, you will not be able to draw any inference or any calculation in it. So in order to work it out, you have got this as your main table, right? So there will be one column in this data and one column in this data which will be unique. Okay, that column, that unique column, will be called as the primary key. Okay, and here also that unique column will be called as a primary key. Now these primary keys are basically going to contain information in the form of an alphanumeric code or in a code. Now let me ask you a simple question. Okay, what is empty and transaction? I am going to explain that, Sushant, don't worry. Okay, so just a quick understanding from all of you. I hope you guys are enjoying the session so far. I hope you all are understanding everything. Sushant, I'm taking your question. Just give me 1 minute. Others, is everyone understanding everything? Are you people enjoying the session? Please give me a quick emoji on the live chat so that I know that, okay, we are on the right track and everything is understood there. Okay, now, Sushant, when I say master table or transaction table, you need to understand what it actually means. See, if you look at the invoices table, what does the invoice table contain? It contains invoices. Now, an invoice is generated when either the customer purchases a product or the product is purchased by a customer. I just said the same thing in two different ways. Okay. Either the product goes to the customer or the customer buys the product. Any of these is going to result in a event, that is the sale. And that sale will be recorded in my invoices table. So that is why it is called as a transaction table or a fact table. The reason it is also called a fact table because it jots down or puts all the facts into one single table. Okay. Next is your dimension table. Now, dimension tables are called as master tables because these tables don't update very regularly and they have a finite set of concepts and a finite set of values that are there in it. Okay, like for example, if it's a student database, you will have roll number available or maybe a registration number from the college given, or maybe the PRN number, which is a registration number given by the universities these days. Now the important thing is that it doesn't keep changing every time and you don't have multiple people sharing the same PRN or one person having more than one PRN. Okay, that is why it's called a master table or a dimension table. Now I hope you've understood it, Sushant. Sushant, I hope you've understood it now. Okay, so I'm waiting for your response, Sushant. So this is what we need to work with. Now this unique column, which is also called as a primary key, is going to be used to connect the data into the customers, from the customers table or the product table inside the invoices table. Now, in the invoices table, the same column will be there. For example, I will have a product ID column here and a customer ID column here. The same columns, customer ID and product ID, will be existing in these tables or in this table as well. Okay. Hold on, Sushant. Hold on. Okay, your question is means we can create, means can we say transaction table creates. See, transaction table doesn't create the relationship. Okay, you create a relationship between the transaction table and the master table. That is what you need to understand. So don't get confused. Okay. Now this customer ID exists here as well as here. Now when I connect the customer ID from here to this becomes the primary key. Okay. And this becomes the foreign key. Please remember that. Foreign key. And the same thing applies for product ID here and product ID here, which is in the products table. Now let me show you how it's actually done. Everyone, please make sure you mark your attendance, because Anam has been putting in the attendance, and also you can download the entire data and the Notion doc as well. Just to take a second here, please make sure you people keep checking out for the updates coming in from Let's Upgrade on their YouTube channel for all the upcoming boot camps. I would, encourage you all to take advantage of these free boot camps that we keep organizing, and you will really benefit from it. Okay, and if you do benefit from it, please do comment and review and give your opinions about this to your friends as well, and use it. Okay, great. Now here I've got two important aspects. One is the from table, and then there is this to table. Now, please understand, this is where I'm going to insert my transaction data and the master data. Now, it doesn't really make a difference when you say from table is the master table or the to table is the master table. It doesn't make a difference. But I prefer keeping it from the master table to the transaction table. I'll tell you why in a second. So I'll start with, let's say I'm starting off with customers. So I'll click this drop down and I'll click on customers. I can see I've got the 4 columns from the customer table. And when I click on to table invoices, you will notice that it has already picked up the relationship between customer name column here and customer name column here. But as I did mention, I'm not interested in this particular relationship because it's being built on a name column, and I don't want that to happen. I am looking out for a column which is either alphanumeric or pure numeric and will stand as a nominal column, or maybe a column that can help me to identify each row. So I select account here, and when I do that, I do select customer account here as well. The reason I've done this and why it did not happen by itself is because in this particular table, in the customers table, account has been written like this, and in the invoices table, the customer account has been written like this. So if there's a spelling mistake or a spelling difference in between the two tables, this is what you're going to be looking at. So you'll have to manually create your relationships here and set it up. But you don't have to do it every time. You set it up once, and whenever new data comes in, it will automatically keep updating. Unless there's a new product that comes in, or there is some information you want to update from the product master. That is something you have to be careful about. Now, when I click OK, here at the back end, or save at the back end, you will notice that immediately the sale value has been updated by the revenue value has been updated by the state column. So this is how you create the relationships in your data. Now, if you notice, when I created the relationship, it says star and 1. Okay, so if I just double click this, okay, or edit it, you will notice it says many to 1. Okay, the from table is invoices and to table is customers. You can even see that it says cross filter direction as single. This is basically called as cardinality. So remember, the master table filters the transaction table, and that is precisely why we have been able to filter the data based on this. Okay, can't we change column name? You can do that. Bhagya Anand, you can do that. That's absolutely fine. Yes, that's a good idea. You can do that. It's absolutely fine. But I just wanted to show you the implications of wrong column names as well, or different column names also. So you can do that. And in fact, that's the best way of doing it, so that you're in real life, you don't waste time in setting up the relationships. But yes, if the relationship has not been set up correctly, you may need to intervene and set up the relationship based on the actual values. Anyways, now I'm going to go back to the model view, and in the model view, I have one more table, and similarly, there's a relationship between the products table and the invoices table. I will drag part number from here and place it onto part hash here. When I do that, it gives me this option saying new relationship from table to table. Now we can keep it as it is, and we can just click on save over here. Now, when it says 1 and then star, this is 1 to many. So basically, this is the one side, and this is the many side, which is represented as a star or sometimes even for that matter represented as a crow's foot. This is a crow's foot drawing, or basically a crow's foot symbol. So this also can be used for explaining one is to many. Now why is it a one is to many relationship? Because this part number appears only once. Every part number appears only once in the products table, because it's a master table. You cannot have duplication. It is a unique column. That's why it is one side here and then many side here, which means that this part number can appear multiple times in the products table, or the product name can appear multiple times in the product table. The reason is because one product can be bought multiple times by different customers, and on the other hand as well, you can have one customer purchasing multiple products. So that is something that you need to understand for this one is to many cardinality. Now the next thing we need to do is, we've got the relationships created. We can go to the model view, and from here you can look at the data that is there. You can see the invoices as well, and you can see here you've got the data. So in the products table, you've got description and product line. So basically you can create a you can create a hierarchy in this case, where you can start off with product line, right click and click on create hierarchy, and here you can update the product line hierarchy. You can just call it as products with an S. No, we already have the name as it. So let's just say product. Okay, and then here I'm going to press enter. You will see product over here, and let's add one more level, that is going to be the description. So within product line I've got description. I can click on apply level changes, and if I want I can go to the report view and create another visual that gives me the total revenue by the product hierarchy. So I've got the product hierarchy here. Now I can analyze what is the sales in which areas. So I can go drill down into the data by clicking on this and click on product, and I can drill down, or maybe I can just click on this double drill down to see all the products that are available and what is the revenue that is being generated by them. So in this case, let's just drill back up, and from here we've understood how to create relationships in the data. Now I'm going to talk about how to work with the DAX. So DAX is basically stands for data analysis expressions. Now I'm not going to really show you how to create the formula, but I'll just explain how you can work with it. So in this case, we still have about 2 minutes left. I'm going to create the revenue column inside Power BI itself. So remember, whenever you want to create a column, you will first select the table where you want to create the column. You can even right click and say create column or new column. It will automatically open up the create column or new column window for you. Now the important thing is, when you select a table, you can see there's a table tools tab here. Now this tab is again a contextual tab. The reason it is called a contextual tab is because here in this case, there is a good chance, or in fact, whenever I click outside any particular area, like if I click here, okay, you will see the table tools will disappear. Okay, so if I click on this table, you see the table tools. Also, you can see there are some calculations that can actually be performed here. So you can create a new measure, you can create a quick measure, you can create a new column and a new table as well. So using formulas, you can even go ahead and create this particular column and the table as well. Okay, so so I think the invoices part field and products part field is not the same. Still, will it work? See, in the invoices table, you have got part hash, which is actually containing the same data. So even though name is not same, but you can still work with it, because you can see in this case, when you hover on this line, you can see account is what is written in the customers table, and invoices is what has been written in the customer account is what has been written in place of account in the invoices table. So keep that in mind. Okay. Now, once this is done, we need to go and create some more calculations. Like for example, I want to show you how to create the revenue with the Power BI or using DAX in this. So this I'm going to show you tomorrow how it is to be done, and I'm going to show you some real basic functions in DAX and see how you can work with the calculated columns and calculated measures. So where will we use many to many? Okay, Abhida Ranjan, many to many relationships. Please remember that these kind of relationships are very ambiguous relationships. I did not even touch upon that because in the bootcamp, if I start explaining it, it's going to take a lot of time and it will be very complicated for you to understand. So for now, I'm not touching upon the many to many relationships, but I will give you an example of when you can use a many to many relationship. I'll give you a very simple example. Let's say I'll just take you to the whiteboard before I close. Let's say here I've got subjects. Okay, I've got a subjects table, and here I've got a students table. Now let's say English is what I have, and I've got roll R1, R2, R3, R4, etc. Now English, and then let's say maths, etc. is the list of subjects that I have. Now student with roll number 1 will study English and maths as well, and English will be studied by roll number 1, roll number 2, and roll number 3 as well. So this is a typical example of a many to many relationships, but handling this becomes very tough. So be very careful when you're dealing with this kind of a situation. Instead of that, you create something which is called as a bridge table in between. And that bridge table or that bridge will look at these combinations. So you will have English with R1, you'll have English with R2, English with R3. Similarly, you'll have maths with R1, R2, and R3. So instead of having 2 entries in one and 3 entries in the other, you'll actually have something which will be a product of the tables. Okay, that will be 2 into 3. So you'll have 6 entries in this bridge table that will give you information. And then using that bridge table, you will perform all your analysis. Okay. Abhinandan, Abhida Ranjan, I hope your query has been answered. So any queries pertaining to the ambassador program, I think should be directed to the admin support team. But yes, I believe there will be a chance for you to connect to the admin team. Okay, Abhida Ranjan. Okay, sir, thank you. Means if more than one products are purchased by customers and vice versa. See, yes, that could be the case, but I have an invoices table in between, right? That is where I am creating a bridge in between. That's the bridging table for me. So similarly, it's a fact table that is there because whatever transactions are done. So similarly, the transaction of the course and the roll number will be that this student has taken this course, and it creates an event. So you can have a transaction table in between that will ease out the many to many relationships problems over there. Okay. So I think we will close the session right now. We are already 2 to 3 minutes ahead, and I believe there would be a plan for some other session as well. So thank you all for attending the session today. We've completed the 3rd day of our boot camp. I'm looking forward to the 4th and 5th days where we will go into more complex concepts of Power BI, and I'm going to introduce you to DAX. Okay. So everyone take care and have a great evening, and I'll see you tomorrow at the same time, 6 to 7 p.m. Thank you, everyone.